Thank you, Blessing, for that incisive reporting there. I'm joined already by someone who has a handle on the issues around the PIGB, which is, of course, our focus on the program this morning. He's an engineer and a public affairs commentator, articulate and brilliant. I must say, Elvis Obaseki, it's a pleasure to have you in the program.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Let's begin this conversation with the history of the PIB. Because I can assure you till now, a lot of Nigerians do not even have the slightest idea what the PIB in itself is about, and the circumstances that made it necessary to now break it to a point where we have a component now referred to as the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill.
I think we are in 2018 now. The first attempt at having a governance document for the oil sector came out of a report that Obasanjo put before, General Obasanjo, then as president, put before the National Assembly. I think that was in the year 2000, when the Oil and Gas Implementation Committee report was submitted to the National Assembly. Yar'Adua rose that thing and put it back. I think the first time it became a bill was when Yar'Adua put it back before the National Assembly in before the 6th Senate. I think what we have now as the PIG bill that is still awaiting presidential assent is 1/4 of the components of the PIB bill. You know, because what we have now is on the governance aspect.
Yeah.
We don't have the one that has to do with the physical framework. You don't have the one that has to do the administrative aspect of it. And you don't have the part of it that has to do with direct gains and benefits to the host communities. You know, what the 8th Senate did, or the 8th National Assembly did, they broke the bill. The governance aspect of it that deals with the policy, the general strategy, the regulation, the commercial aspect of it, and a little bit of the auxiliary aspect of the oil industry, that is unbundling. If I want to use the word unbundling of NNPC, is what we have now. The aspect that has to do with the physical framework is not there. The aspect that has to do with the administration of the petroleum industry is not there. Then the aspect that has to do with the petroleum host communities, which they also call a Petroleum Host Communities Development Bill, is also not there. But be that is at least 25%. They will say our bread is better than none, but this one, the quarter bread, is better than.
At least there's bread. That's
bread, but a quarter of it.
Yeah, let's talk about our bread now, because you from your narrative, it's apparent that the bill, the PIGB as it were, is narrow, if you will, limited.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't embrace the component that deals directly with the host communities. Yeah. That has a lot of implications, doesn't it?
No, but if you a few days ago in Houston, the GMD of NNPC, in addressing the conference, talked about the positives of having the whole ensemble passed before the end of this year.
Okay.
Because I told TEC in Houston, I was like, if Makati Barrow is talking about passing the whole, I know the other 3 parts of the bill are different stages of reading in the National Assembly. But if we're talking of passing everything this year, why don't the president give assent, at least first, to this one, even in its imperfection? Because what was submitted, or what was harmonized and finally passed by the 8th Assembly is really not a perfect document. But at least that will help us and it will push us towards the aspect of at least entrenching some form of corporate governance in the oil and gas sector.
There are so many powerful individuals and corporates within the oil sector. I mean, talk about in particular the international oil companies, the IOCs. The bulk of them are non-state actors who, to a large extent, for whatever reason, in fact, in some cases, for obvious reasons, influence the direction, policy direction of the industry in this country. How much of ramification does that have or pose for us as a country and an economy?
If you look at what the PIGB is now, looking at the bill as it is now, I can't really pinpoint where the activities of the IOCs will be affected by the bill.
Okay.
Because up until tomorrow, nobody will ever convince me not to accuse the Nigerian government and the IOCs of being behind the crisis in the Niger Delta. Okay. Sincerely. But the aspect that...
Obviously, that's a personal opinion.
No, that's what I believe, because at least I've worked in the oil and gas sector before now. You can have an oil installation in a community and they will not have light. For the kids in that community to read, they go close to the fence of the oil installation in their own place to have access to light, to have access to electricity, at least for them to read. We now give back to them in piecemeal. The PIB bill, the initial petroleum industry bill, if that bill was not tampered with, that bill would have gone a long way to enhance the capacity of the host communities, one, to enhance the capacity of the local content. The local content capacity of that bill would have really benefited the average Nigerian more. It gives them more room and more opportunities to do business on a commodity or on natural resources that Nigeria has been blessed with. Because at least to some extent there's been exploitation. Really, we can't really tell how many millions of barrels leave this country daily.
The reason I ask that question, let's create a perspective for this part of the conversation, is because we've heard so much about the so-called cabal.
Yeah.
Of course, no doubt about that. Then there are people with vested interest in the sector. Now, keep in mind that this is one sector that's critical and central at the same time to the economy. So we need to look at all of the elements involved in all this, because, by the way, just this week, the Senate President has warned IOCs to say, hey, there's no basis for you to bribe legislators to bend or break the rules. What does that say about the whole process?
I wouldn't want to believe that Senator Saraki is still talking of the PIGB that is waiting for presidential assent.
Okay.
I have a feeling that he's talking of the other parts of the bill.
The other components?
Yeah, the other components of the bill are the components that the oil and gas players will really be interested in wanting to be part and parcel of what comes out of it. Naturally, I would say oil business is dirty business.
Is it?
Yeah,
how dirty is it?
No, so much vested interest. Acreages, oil blocks, the politics behind it. You know what it means for a man to have an oil block. You know, that takes you away and takes your generations away from the line of poverty and gives so much control, political
and financial,
control to whoever has that, you know. And now we pass the stage of regulation. We pass the stage of the policy direction. We're heading towards the business of the oil and gas sector. This is where the IOCs might want to play and determine where the pendulum swings. And once the law is made, all that we are now supposed to do is to abide and obey the law. But before it is made, lobbyists will come in. Sincerely, lobbyists will come in. I don't think the IOCs will fold their hands and wait for the National Assembly to write a bill that they will not want to be part of the process. Not that public hearings will not be done. Of course. Yeah, they will be done. But still, there will be so much lobbying from behind the scene.
Somebody has asked a question one time, I think in 2011, was asking, is it wrong, is it unethical to have lobbying done in the oil sector?
There are two ways to that question. I can't say, I can give an emphatic no, and I can give an emphatic yes. Yes, you can lobby. Lobbying gives you an opportunity to at least put before the stakeholders, those that will take those decisions, those that will make those policies, to see it from the angle of the practitioner. Because those that are involved in the oil and gas sector are different from those that are making the laws. Sincerely. And lobbying will give them an opportunity to really state how it's supposed to be behind the scene. I think lobbying is allowed, but not when you lobby and narcos infraction of corporate governance. When you lobby and you now begin to push back, Ghana must go front and back, then that is no longer lobbying. I know some international companies, even in America, that are into PR and lobbying. And it's a duty to make sure that, yes, this bill or this that is before the Congress or before the Senate. Yeah.
Let's talk about the element you mentioned a while ago, which is the issue of politics. Is it possible to divorce entirely politics from this whole conversation about oil business anywhere in the world?
No. No, but that's why I still feel that only a president or a leader that is not thinking about self can push the oil and gas business, especially in a country like Nigeria, towards that path of not having government interfere. Because when the business of governance is left to the government and the business of the business is left to the public sector. If you take, if you look at the example of Petrobras, Petrobras is doing well, very well.
Even though it has also had scandals here and there.
Scandals, even companies, multinationals still have scandals. At least everyone went down, it was a scandal. But Petrobras, if you look at how far they've come, how much of government interference in their activities, you know that because government has taken the back seat and it is now being driven as a public liability company. Petrobras is doing very well, at least a company that is operating in almost 16 countries in the world. You know that they are doing very well. And if you look at this PID bill, the total ensemble, it would make the NAPC play in the international oil and gas industry. Petrobras, a Brazilian company, having refineries in the United States, having refineries in Ecuador, having refineries in Japan. That will give them an opportunity to make more money for the Brazilian people. If we allow this to go, it will make NAPC a company or an institution or an entity that can also make money outside.
Now, you mentioned Petrobras. Now, that gives some sort of impetus to the conversation we're having on the program. Petrobras, incidentally, does not only ring a bell across the Americas, stretches all the way to even Asia. You mentioned Japan, for instance, a while ago. For whatever it's worth, Petrobras is an example of how oil system, as it were, should run. Are we having a problem of a model in Nigeria as far as the oil sector is concerned?
I think our problem is with our political class, sincerely. Not that we don't have the intelligentsia that can make these things happen. We have. Not that we don't have opportunities of maybe some of our public servants going down to Petrobras and learning their model and bringing it back here. But the political will to do it by the Nigerian president to do it is where the problem is. I ask myself a question. Why is it so much like a fad that every Nigerian president wants to be the Minister of Petroleum? Why?
That's not right, is it?
It's not right. First, the reason why you were elected because of petroleum. If petroleum should be treated as just any other ministry. It's like you saying the Minister of Nigeria is the Minister of Agric. I will say, yes, I love that more.
What would you prefer that?
He wants us to have food. But if you now, General Basanjo, when he came in 99, he made himself minister. Not until almost 3-4 years before he now, I think he now ended up with the Minister of State when he was leaving office.
Was that a bad precedent?
It is. It is. If you have somebody like His Royal Majesty Modakuru, then who was an essay to him and later became Minister of State for Petroleum, I think Dakuru was grounded enough, having risen to that height in the oil and gas sector. We had the likes of Dr. Riwan Lukman, who has also risen to that height in the oil and gas sector. Let them run this ministry and they report back to you. But the interest that the Nigerian president, at least the last 4 presidents, 2 have been ministers of petroleum, I don't think is right.
What drives that interest?
That is a political angle that I'm looking at it from. Because if the president does not feel that there is something about petroleum, because petroleum is money. How is the president is also the Minister of Finance? The Minister of Finance is to disburse. The demand from petroleum or the Minister of Petroleum is the cash earner for the country. Give it to trusted hands. So I still feel, because of that political interest, that is why, to me, President Buhari might not sign, might not assent.
So you have that fear, might not assent?
Yeah. Because if you looked at the bill, about 10 months to the end of this administration, the bill has implementation periods of nothing less than 12 months. In most of the unbundling. 12 months, 6 months, 12 months. Oh, it's really not what I think this administration can achieve.
If your fear that the president may not sign that bill comes through, what will be the ramification?
The onus is on the National Assembly to do the needful. The laws are clear. It's just unfortunate that we're in a country where individuals are celebrated at high and above institutions. That is where our problem starts from. The Senate passed this bill since May 25th, 2017. The House of Reps passed it in January 2018, and the harmonized bill came out on the 31st of March. Between 31st of March and today, we're talking of almost 6 weeks. And the importance of that bill to the Nigerian system, the players in the system, they are happy about it. Let this bill come, and at least to some extent, it will take us on the path towards El Dorado. We might not be there yet, but at least it will take us towards that path. If by now, 6 weeks after, one of the things the president promised Nigerians was the passage of the PIBB. So I think if he really wants to keep a promise he has made, my dear president should have signed off on that bill.
You've talked about systems.
Yeah.
Time and again, we've been told that Nigeria is a country where you have powerful individuals, then weak institutions. And when you talk about an oil industry that runs seamlessly, in a manner of speaking, then you should be looking at a system that functions, a system that works real time. In some cases, even runs on autopilot.
Yeah.
How do we begin to build and maintain, in fact, even encourage for the long term, functional systems, particularly within the oil industry?
Well, this starts with our ideology.
Okay.
This starts with what we believe in. I still don't feel that God will bring angels from heaven to rule us. The people deserve the leadership that they elect. Nigerians were good praise singers. Nigerians are very good at singing your praise, even if we were doing it wrongly, just because of what comes to them. The average Nigerian thinks I first before we. That is why you see a man, he will say, I'm a Nigerian. The next thing he will say, where are you from? Then he will now go back, I'm from so and so state. And if he's within that so and so state, it will now go to what local government are you from. We still don't see ourselves first as a Nigerian. We see ourselves first, okay, I'm an Edo man from Edo State, before seeing ourselves as Nigerians. This, I think, is one of the major hurdles towards the statesmanship in our thoughts. I would rather have a system that sustains itself than powerful humans that perpetuate themselves in office. These are two serious problems that we have in this country. If we have a system that has been well built, and at least at a point where whoever is there is supposed to exit, he exits quietly, and the institution is strong and is standing on very solid foundation, nobody really bothers himself about who is on the seat, because it is not about who is the driver, but about the vehicle. But in this country, Nigeria, we are more bothered about who the driver is than the vehicle. So it will remain a thing that Nigerians will live with until we begin to pick selfless leaders. I'll tell you one. I am president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or I'm the governor of Edo State. And I know you have forgotten that, yes, this office is transient. And you now begin to perceive me as if it is an institution or a position I will hold for life. I'll sack you if you are my employer, I'll sack you. That means you don't know the reason why we are here. We are here because the Nigerians have voted us for a short period of time to do what they want us to do. And if after that first term, they think that we've done well, they give us a second term and we'll finish on what we're supposed to do within the 8 years and go.
Sorry, let me bump in on you at this point, because there's something pressing we must talk about before we take a break, this time. I've spoken with brilliant commentators and analysts like yourself, in some cases professors of economics.
Yeah.
They've said time and again that the revenue we record from oil, we get from oil, is in no way by whatever standard commensurate with the level of development we're seeing. In fact, some have said we are only growing as a country in terms of the figures we see, but we are not developing. What's your take?
I think to a very large extent you're right. Corruption is our biggest problem.
Even in the oil sector?
Yeah. But that is where the biggest wahala is. Because in actual fact, I saw in the ET report, this extractive industry report, what we give out, what Nigeria sells every day, isn't even not what is being recorded. Isn't even not what is being reported. Remember when in the time of the immediate past president, when some humongous amounts were being banded, even by the CBN governor
at the time.
At the time, so some billions of dollars. Hey, if the CBN governor could open his mouth to say that, there is no way, to some extent, those figures will not really have been. It might not be the exact figure. There is no way some of such humongous amount will not have been missing. $1 billion is, as of today, 350 billion naira. That's the budget of about 3-4 states. And he said then $20 billion. It might not be as high as that. It might even be more than that. But I think the corruption in the oil and gas sector is even one of the reasons why the actuaries are not right. The actuaries are not what is being reported. And that is being reported is being looted from left, right, and center. We dwell so much on the political class. The civil, the public servants or the civil servants in that sector, there is no way, there is just no way anybody can do anything without those that are in the system. That's the truth.
Some persons have alluded to strong, powerful forces within the oil sector. And on the basis of that theory, they say it's not possible to fight corruption in that sector. Do you share that thought?
I don't. No, that is not possible to fight corruption in all sectors. It's very possible. But there must be the political will.
But you don't think the peculiarity of the oil sector makes it like a brick wall?
No, there is no sector that can be a brick wall. The only thing that it will be more difficult.
Okay.
No, that is completely impossible. If the president has the political will to seek transparency, he will at least achieve something before the end of his 4 years in office. But when the same set of players are left in the system, those that are in the system have survived the system over years, over decades, so they know how to handle whoever is coming in. But if whoever is coming in has the political will to say, hey, the reason why I'm here is not to continue the way it has been done. You remember the WikiLeaks report that came out then? And one of the IOCs was accused of having a hand in anybody that takes the decision or advises the president as a final boss up on issues that concerns the oil and gas sector. The reports might be right, but to some extent, if you follow the analogy in that report, you see that almost everybody that really had a hand in what matters, at least at the highest level in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, must at one point, at one time or the other, being an employee of the IOC that was mentioned in WikiLeaks report. So I think the cabal is there. Those that want to continue to do it the way they want it, at least to benefit their companies, are there. But if we have the man at the top that has the will, the political will to say, I want to change the way this is, we can.
In the course of your narrative a while ago, you made an allusion to the unbundling of the NNPC, which of course made a song sometime last year. Now we're told that there are a few individuals with vested interests who do not want to see that happen. What's your take overall on that?
To a very large extent, yes. Those that are enjoying the system the way the big NNPC is now might not want it. Because the PIGB bill, as of today, created outside the office of the Minister of Petroleum Resources, created 6 other institutions or 6 other entities, all coming out from NNPC. What we have now in NNPC, there was some form of restructuring done by the minister. The PIGB says the minister, in the bill the way it is now, says the minister has no power anymore to create subsidiaries. These institutions, I mean, we talk of the Nigerian Petroleum Regulatory Commission, a part of NNPC as of today. You talk of the Nigerian Petroleum Asset Management Commission. You talk of the Nigerian Petroleum Liabilities Management Commission. You talk of the Petroleum Equalization Fund, which is supposed to take care of spreading the accruals from consumption. All this put together are supposed to have been the giant NNPC, but have been broken into entities that are independent of each other with different boards, not just one NNPC board. All those companies that have their board, and the ministry is still standing to represent the interest of Nigeria in all the boards. Ministry of Finance is even in, BPE is even in. Yes, to some extent, the bill, I still feel the bill might not be a 100% perfect bill, but at least it's a way towards the right direction. They might have whittled down some of there are some infractions on corporate governance, having more executive directors than independent directors, and no tenure for the executive directors and independent having tenure. So some of those things could have been worked on, but at least the way it is now, even if it's signed into law, it's still a step in the right direction.
Well, quite frankly, would you say the availability of oil in Nigeria is a blessing or a curse?
God does not give to his people anything that will be...
I mean, looking at the special way in which we have managed oil in this country.
No, God does not give to his people what will be a curse. Oil, by God's design, is supposed to be a blessing. It is the management of our natural resources, the mismanagement of our natural resources that is turning a blessing into a curse. The way the Niger Delta area is today will make anybody say oil has been a curse. But I'll tell you, if it was well managed, and if we still we'll make up our minds to say, let's manage our oil well and our resources well, natural resources are a blessing. Oil is not the only natural resource that we have in this country. It's just that because it is there, it has brought in that spirit of laziness into the average Nigerian. We have other natural resources.
We are on the brink of a break right now. You talked about, I mean, a while ago, you talked about your fear that the president may not sign the PIGB, and the general elections are upon us. How do you see an interplay or an overlap, as it were, between both?
A statesman president, a president that thinks people first, a president that sees legacies as what he or she will want to leave for his people, will sign a PIGB even before today. But going by what we've seen in the last almost 3 years, third year, the body language of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today, I would say will not sign the bill.
Do you see the election playing a part in that? I mean, looking at the fact that, again, it's an election year around the corner, that would be an influence.
We're back to one of the things that pushed Nigeria in a continuous vicious circle. Governance in Nigeria is really for 2 years and 4 years. The first year, if the person that is coming in has a misfortune of having his opponent go to court, he will waste the first year in at the different levels of litigation.
Starting from the tribunal.
Then the fourth year, elections. So the way the Nigerian system has designed itself, the second and the third year are really years for governance. Even the tail end of the fourth year, you see everything turning towards the political aspect. It will not far away from governance. I don't think in the last 12 months of this regime that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the way I have seen him act in the last 36 months, signed the PIG bill.
Okay. So I think our prayer and our wish will be that your fear doesn't come true. So that will be signed. And then going forward, we'll begin to see measurable change take place in the oil sector. I've been speaking with a brilliant, articulate engineer, Elvis Obaseki. He's a public affairs commentator. He's been with me on the program today to help us create a perspective and fire up conversation with regards to the PIGB, which is right now in front of President Muhammadu Buhari. And we're hoping that in the days, weeks, hopefully months ahead, he will assent that all-important bill, as critical as it is to the oil sector of the Nigerian economy. Once again, we feel delighted to have you on the program today.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
We'll take a quick break and we'll see you shortly.